As many of you know, recently Laurent and I received the message of the code from the Holy Spirit, and the message of the code really explains how everything within our experience now is the same, because it explains how everything is ideas, how a manifestation such as a table or a body is an idea, a feeling is an idea, a thought is an idea, and it really helps to make everything the same. So, even way back in 2005, Holy Spirit was pointing me in the direction of these profound messages that I'm receiving now. But then I did not have enough willingness, or my willingness was not grown enough to have received the types of messages that I'm receiving now. To be honest, a few weeks ago when the code came, I had extreme difficulty writing it down. My willingness was barely there. I think you may have heard me tell the story that I wrote it down in great pain, physical pain, as I was writing the message of the code. And then after I wrote it, what I really wanted to do was rip it up and throw it away. As soon as I finished writing it, I wanted to rip it up and throw it away. But what I did instead was I took the spiral notebook and I threw it in a cabinet and closed the door, which I don't remember ever doing before, but I wanted to get that notebook completely out of my sight. So even when I finally wrote the message of the code, the willingness that it took to write it was barely there. But even with that, I continued to nurse that willingness. In the afternoon, I still hadn't pulled the notebook out, but Laurent wanted to know what I had written that morning. And so in great annoyance, because I was still feeling pain, with great annoyance, I started telling him about the message, which kind of led to a little bit of back and forth between him and me that was not at all comfortable. And what I did is I noticed this uncomfortable situation we were in, trying to discuss this message, which I was still refusing to pull out of the cabinet and actually read. It's so funny now, the resistance I had. But as I was noticing, the struggle that Laurent and I were having just trying to discuss it, I remembered another message that the Holy Spirit had given me about replacing fear images with a newer image. And I realized that resistance is fear. And that what I was seeing now happening between Laurent and I was really a fear image. It was the manifestation of my resistance towards the message of the code. So what I decided to do was nurse my willingness some more. I may have had enough willingness to write the message of the code, but I was not yet having enough willingness to have clarity on the message of the code. So I took the image that was in front of me, the image of Laurent and I, annoyingly discussing this message that I wouldn't read. And I replaced it in my mind with an image of Laurent and I receiving complete clarity together at the same time on this message. And I really held to that image in my mind. And that, of course, was letting that willingness grow, that willingness to accept the message of the code. And then what happened that night is he and I finally did pull the message out. I was willing enough to pull the message out, and we read it together. We went over it for 2.5 hours, and we received profound clarity, which then led to me having the experience later that same evening of the Big Bang. And if you all have heard that teaching about the code and the Big Bang, you know it's absolutely profound. I've received more comments from you all on the message of the code than any other message that's ever come through me. So it's an incredibly profound message which brings a whole lot of clarity to the mind.